Okay, lesson 3. We've already passed through on the first and second lesson how we need to keep our hands, our techniques. We passed all that business now, and so if you've got caught up that so far, your fingers should be, if you've practiced enough, getting relatively dexterous by now. So before we go, because I've had a few people ask me this, before we go into scales, pentatonic, diatonic, this and that, modes, Phrygian, Lydian, mixed Lydian, whatever, well, let's listen to the guitar, because it's something that a lot of people don't do nowadays. It's actually just listen to the notes. There's 12 notes in all, from octave to octave. Yeah, from root to octave, or call it what you wish. Now, a pentatonic's only 5 notes. Obviously, pent means 5 in Latin, or such, something like that. And then you've got 7 notes of the diatonic. Now, we're going to start on D, and there's a reason for that. The reason being is, this is how we tune our guitars a lot. Okay, that's a D note there. Now, we're going to start here now. I mean, I'm going to go through just quickly the D major scale, which is simple. Tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. So no matter what note you start off on the whole fretboard, if you follow tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, you'll get a diatonic major scale, okay? It's relatively that easy. Transposing is a lot more difficult, but we'll go through that later as well. But let's listen to the actual guitar. Let's go from bass note, like from root note to octave, and actually understand how these sound, because we listen to things, but we take them in differently and we use them differently too. Different tools, different structure. So let's go with our D, our first note. Obviously it sounds exactly the same. Let's go for our next note, which is D sharp. Playing a D sharp over a D. Very dissident. Very distant, like sort of sound you got there. Is it usable? Yes, it's usable. I mean, if we use our minor note as well, everything's usable. Okay, so this is a D sharp over a D, and we can still use it. Let's go with our third there. Now, this is part of obviously the D major scale, so it's going to sound kind of fine. Up there to a fourth. So obviously, when we do get to scales, this is basically like the minor third, basically. It's the flat third. So you've got that kind of minor sounding. Right, let's move on. Nothing different there really, it's part of the scale. Moving on up. Now can you hear all the different tones? You're getting sympathy notes here and there or whatever. Again, rather distant as we go up. Pretty pleasant. Not bad. You can feel it crescendoing. And there we are, as we get to our octave. So you've got all those different notes. You've got all of them to play with in your music, how you interpret it, how you play it, but more importantly, it's what makes you original. Why be stuck to 5 notes on the pentatonic scale? Why? Explore your guitar. Don't let it be so boring as just to transpose it into just like sort of this scale, that scale, whatever else. You've got 12 notes to deal with when you play your music and you invent your own music. Try and keep away from playing other people's music, because you can get led down a slippery path there into basically playing basically other people's stuff. Now what you'll learn is, by using this procedure, is how a lot of the sound that bands like Dream Theater get. They're very chromatically played, very well worked out, but a lot of chromaticism in there. Which means, I mean, it gives you all the broad width that you can use of those 12 notes, rather than being stuck to one major or or any other scale you choose. Use them, experience with them, play them, and listen to them, and try and get your head around how they sound, because they sound different. Everyone interprets things different, uses things different. So I'm going to say for now, before, like I say, this is before we get into scales and modes and all the rest of it, all the boring stuff, and it is boring, but it is essential. And how the chords actually sort of fit around these like particular scales and whatever else. Get to like do this now. Yeah, I mean, we've just gotten through in the first two lessons just to practice and get your fingers dexterous and like use your little pinky finger to make sure. But this is like just something more interesting. Before we get into scales, this is more interesting, so you can use all of your notes. Okay, see you next time.